Chilly here. This is Sirius Talis Moon Jupiter Day Jupiter Hour. And since I can't be on a plane having, um, give me a good Norwegian dish in a town where there's no time, then I would have my 22 Mars in the 12th house there. So it would kind of be risky to fall asleep. Maybe I'm just idealizing. Um, but Jupiter is direct. Unafflicted, the moon is still 29 degrees Sagittarius. Do we have a Jupiter talisman? I'm not doing another Jupiter talisman with this Mars Rahu. I'm sorry. I'm scared of doing a Jupiter talisman with Mars Rahu. Um, in fact, I may even discard the ones that I did do. Um, and it all sounded like the perfect talisman. Jupiter is unafflicted, Moon in Jupiter's sign, Jupiter in a good house, ascendant midheaven ruled by Jupiter and Mars Rahu. Um, again, Jupiter elections in Cancer. How can I say this? Jupiter, both Jupiter in Pisces. Jupiter in Pisces had some droopy Venus before Saturn ingressed into Pisces, but Jupiter in Cancer, it is more like the way Jupiter in Pisces was to alleviate the doom and gloom of COVID than to do anything else. Okay, it was kind of like that necessary Jupiter in its home sign um, right before the water wars. And Jupiter in Cancer is, I think, the benefic thing about everything that's happening that's absolutely not benefic. Okay, and in the spirit of that, because I can see that Jupiter in Cancer was not yielding too much of big elections, and even when we would think Jupiter would be big, where it's like, oh, big money, big growth, billionaires, it's kind of like, well, Epstein list. so, and so, um, it's kind of like it does yield some sort of optimism, um, but it doesn't yield the Jupiter results that, or if it does yield the Jupiter results, we see the big, whereas Mars squaring or Mars, like this Mars Rahu now. Um, so it's still Jupiter in Cancer, it's still exalted. And when it was conjunct in Venus, it was with Hades and Kronos. Definitely, we are tending to deep things. However, let's talk about some good things. A secular person like me doesn't have a lot of moments. And I remember around the Me Too, I had a moment where I realized that I feel more free around April. Like this notion of liberation is to do with April or month of Nisan. And I'm like, that's so fucking weird because I'm so fucking secular. Um, but through astrology, I connect with the seasons, I guess. And one of the things that was very weird to me was how on the money I was when I was talking today about. I opened today talking about the offering of smoke that cannot be done just at the Templar or at the temple, the bombing of the possible bombing of the residues of the temple, which is the Wailing Wall, the fact that the synagogues, actually where I lived in Arad, the synagogues became safety places. And I said, well, it's absolutely fine, but people are going to come with their spaghetti and flip-flops in the summer because it's getting warmer. And the fact that if Iran comes here, we might want to go there. Now, not only that, I was talking about the Talmud, and eventually the Talmud was leading to the fall under Byzantine law, and I need to learn more about Byzantine law, but let's go through with you with the amount of oh my godness that I felt reading Judaism after the fall of Rome. So, several years, astrologers have been talking roundabout in Twitter X about the fall of Rome, contemplating about the fall of Rome, because they have identified that this is the spirit of the times. Um, people that were a bit smug in Turkey. This happens to everybody. Um, and there isn't a person who didn't do anything, whether it's diplomatic or teaching position or even astrology, and didn't have like this. There are hits and there are misses, and then there are misses. um, I can think of my misses. And I had some. I don't remember. I don't remember right now, but I had some. I had some moments. Following the Roman destruction and the Second Temple in 70 CE, and the subsequent Bar Kokhba revolt, Judaism underwent fundamental transformation from sacrificial cult to a decentralized, text-based, and faith-driven religion. This is basically where, because the temple was ruined, then and people were in exile. It's kind of like the Neptune Eris, which is why I predicted Protestants to be strong with this. Okay, if it is happening, then I was correct, and the reason is that um, basically when people are in exile, when people are at war, they don't have the vacancy to go to the religious institutions, even a church, and they begin to worship at home. So for the Judaism, it can be the Shabbat candles or anything that is, I don't know, when I was doing my Jupiter talisman, which I think still had this Mars row that I might dispose of. But anyway, it was like, okay, it's Jupiter time. I was next to a pharmacy, like a super farm, sitting on the ground. What do I have in my bag that I can consecrate? Open this short that had this Jupiter invocation in it, and use the keys that I have to do the closest thing that I can to engraving the Jupiter symbol. This is what religion looks like in action when people talk about exile, because it's kind of like nobody has the time to properly get ready or to properly prepare, um, and so there's not a proper ritual as there would be in the temple. And also the notion of sacrifice. Again, I don't necessarily promise that ritual abuse is going to cease, um, but definitely the ritual abuse does bring exile. And since ritual abuse consists of rape, blame shifting, torture, and so on, that's what caused the fall of the temple. I was actually speaking with a lady on the bus, and I don't know how we got to that. I really don't know how we got to that. Um, um, but those are the things, because they say, oh, the second temple fell over hatred, or kind of like free hate instead of free love. I said, when does a person hate? If a person is not raped, is not tortured, they don't hate. I remember when I was young in my elementary school, the people from the Soviet Union came. It was in the 90s, and they spoke different language and so on and so forth. And everybody said they take our jobs and so on. And I was like, I was a child, so I was catching up on that. And then my best friend was from this, and she taught me how to read Cyrillic letters. So I was way more busy about learning this new language and new culture than thinking about somebody stole a job that I don't have at 12. And not only that, we went to work together because my mother would sell and produce jewelries and stuff, and we went to door. So that was quickly gone. It's only when people are ritually abused and tortured to perpetuate torture and so on that we do get this hatred that knocks down temples. The very temples in which children were sacrificed, but they can't say it. So we have establishment of rabbinical Judaism. Judaism did not go the Protestant way full blown. It did have the rabbinical mitigation, and they did have synagogues. Rabbi Yonatan ben Zakkai established new center of learning and central court. And they also talk about initiation to have court system here. I don't recommend, because these guys are going to teach Talmud, and Talmud is human trafficking. Eventually, like I said, they fell under Byzantine law because of that. If you, all people need to do is read excerpts from the Talmud. And they can say, well, they interpret this, interpret that. Nobody cares how you interpret. People care if they have the zero rape, zero slavery, or they don't. If they don't care about the gaslighting. But then if they do, then, and if it's for entire society, if no hidden parts, that then it's okay. But then it wouldn't fall under Byzantine law if that was the truth for them. So that was in Yavne, replacing the temple structure with systems centered on prayer, study, and charity. Excess need in charity usually is because of human trafficking. For example, we saw it with our neighbors, the Palestinians. They had, not unlike the Epstein ring in Israel, they had their own Epstein rings, and not their own, it's in interface, and there was genocide. They say, well, surely we have it all. Also, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It is bringing Shoah, okay? And also, when they do the ritual abuse, they call this Shoah. And so then, after they traffic, they create destruction of their own people, and then they do charity. Okay, Rockefeller did not invent that. We see it in other religions as well. Due to the brutal Roman suppression, including the revolt, the Jewish population in Judea dwindled, leading to massive expansion of the diaspora. Again, exile. Like I said, that damn fuckery brings exile. And a shift in the center of Jewish life to Galilee and Babylon. Galilee, Ami Magalil, this is the North Israel. I know it's needed. Ami Magalil, Ami Magolan, Ami Gaza, Ami Tel Aviv. I don't remember the. There's a song I made to the war. Um, and Ha'am is the people, and Babylon. So Babylon, as I said, they come here, we go there. Compilation of oral law. The Mishnah was compiled around 200 CE, providing a foundational legal text which was followed by the creation of the Talmud. That's the human traffickers that caused us to fall under Byzantine law. Cultural and religious changes. The loss of the temple meant the Levite priesthood, the Levites, and the Kohanim. Sacrifices and the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, faded, making synagogue worship in local communities the cornerstone of Jewish life. Now, here is the thing. If people are going to come to the synagogue as a shelter, the synagogue is going to have, it is the Gregorian synagogues, mind you. That's a freaking cult. It's like the Mormons. It's like the Jesuits. In fact, when I lived in Iraq, two Jesuits met me. And they're like, oh, you're Youngblood. There's a lot of Youngblood in Utah. And I know nothing about nothing. Geen herinnering kan zijn handy. And they wanted to take me to a feast, and they wanted for me to declare that Jesus is my only God, and so on. I said, I'm not monogamous. I'm not monogamous with God. Love Jesus, not monogamous with God. Then they said that they will pray for me and pray over me. And I was like, okay, I don't meet these two ladies ever again. And that was my encounter with the Jesuits. Survival amidst political loss. Despite the loss of political independence, Jewish people continue to live in the land, although became a minority, with region transitioning from Roman to Byzantine rule. Now I have to see what is this Byzantine law. Continuation of Roman law with increased Orthodox, Christian, and Hellenistic influence. Okay. And it was starting after the reign of Justinian I in 6th century and ending with the fall of Constantinople in 15th century. Although future Byzantine codes and constitutions derived largely from Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, the main objective were idealistic and ceremonial rather than practical. Hellenistic and Near Eastern political system legislations were tools to idealize and display the sacred role and responsibility of the emperor as the holy monarch, chosen by God as incarnation of Nomos Psychos. Okay, what is the meaning of that? Living law. Yes. Sun exalts in Aries, which is the individual. Everybody were waiting for me to say that. They idealized the perfect Byzantine kingship. Now that doesn't sound lovely, but hey, if they weren't saying that it's okay to rape an infant because it is not yet in puberty, and it doesn't. Anyway, then that guy came. They're like, oh, we've been doing that for centuries. Enabling rape is like an invocation of um, forced conversion. But here's the thing: they said that the enabler of the rape is the raped, and that's, like I said, the enabler of the Inquisition is the Jew. um, the most important work of Byzantine law was the Ecloga. The Jew differing from the Talmudic and Mishnah rabbinical practitioner. Why differing? Because the common Jew, okay, but the common Jewish people that were burned in the Holocaust, okay, they were not the enablers by and large, and even if they were, they couldn't have. It would be in the scope of what they didn't know. They didn't know. The most important work of Byzantine law was the Ecloga, issued by Leo III, the first major Roman Byzantine legal code, issued in Greek rather than Latin. And then Pharma's law was established, regulating legal standard outside the cities. While Ecloga was influenced throughout the Mediterranean Europe for the importance of Constantinople as a trading center. The Pharma's law was a seminal influence on the Slavic legal tradition, including those of Russia. Legacy. What do we have in those laws? Do we have the laws themselves? I'm not reading the word Macedonia now. It's my controversy quota is up. um, the Basilica of Leo the Philosopher, together with his brother Alexander and Constantine, which attempts to synthesize the 6th century commentaries and glosses on Justinian laws by headings and remove contradictions. Yeah, but what were the laws? Um, Law School of Constantinople. Why don't I have the actual laws? Customs and constitutions instituted greater influence, but no laws. Military law, the sea laws, maritime laws, Mosaic laws. I don't know. Okay, let's see what is this codex. Law is an interpretive discipline, and the primary legislation upon the interpretation was based. Oh, it's basically the pillars of by the how should I say it? Lashon HaChok and interpretation is basically um, the two disciplines. For, let's say, we have a law that says it's not allowed to murder, okay? But what if someone raped? If someone raped, he siphoned the life energy from a person, basically committing uh, an effective murder of the possibility to live a good life. And so, not only that, that is prompted by uh, um, evangelist or messianic perception of spirituality and religion that that is cult-like. It's basically committing crime against humanity in the name of religion. Um, and not only that, if we will confine this place, this person, let's say, in a prison, he might try that because this is a spiritual practice. It's an out-of-body practice as well. And so, by the law of do not murder, or the punishment for murder is death, then we would say, well, this person raped. But if we interpret the law, we understand that this person have effectively committed murder unless he is dead, and then the person that he raped can retrieve their soul and life back, because they will not be siphoned anymore, at least not by this person. What happens when this person is a group of people, and when those group of people are the rulers and they name themselves nomos psyche is another thing. But this was when they came up with the pillars of interpreting the language, of what was the meaning behind the law, and go by that meaning versus go by the law in verbatim. So in history of jurisdiction, I guess this would be the times where we instated those two pillars, if I'm not mistaken. Although I think it is already in the Judaic tradition, and probably before that. So I don't know. It just continues that, I guess. Imperial constitutions represented not only prescriptive legal formulas, but also descriptive pronouncements of an emperor's moral and ideological principles. For those who got excited about the previous anecdote, well, the open-ended question remains: what would abolish the practice of ritual abuse? Effectively and authentically. Definitely not perpetuating torture, definitely not torturing a person to admit that. The people that practiced those things were the warlocks. Okay, but they died by the guillotine. Um, in the city of God, Saint Augustine praised Theocytus the Great. One could even claim that the root of such practices is the impending doom on humanity. Because it seems like once such a thing started, it can only be undone by entire humanity dead. I hope I am wrong. Um, First law: Finally, first laws granting tax exemption to the church appear in Codex and are credited to Constantine and his son Constantinus II. Yeah, this is where they basically deemed themselves illegal. These laws specify land owned by the clergy, family members, and churches were exempt from compulsory service and tax payment, except with the expectation of land personally owned by the clerics. Which was paid for by the taxes of the people. So the people had to pay the taxes to the church that raped them. Not very different, not a lot of difference to today. Replace church with synagogue, mosques, and so on, or Templar temples. Okay, so this was the Byzantine law. Basically, Jews, because of their Talmudic enabling of rape and rape of infants, they had to convert. They had to convert, at least in the place of being under reign of not just the monarch, but the Christian monarch, not just the Christian monarch, a Christian monarch that sees himself as representation of Christlich God. Don't rape. Don't rape or love Christ. Um, what happens to those who rape in the name of Christ? Well, and they are raped in the name of Islam. It is true. But I wish I had a more humane answer to give, because it's not like this answer is rational and good, but it's also not untrue. um, that was Constantinople. I don't know what happened after the fall of Constantinople. Oh, I think after fall of Constantinople, we began to have the Islamic Golden Age. But this is a couple of centuries on. So people are debating whether we are beginning the Islamic Golden Age or we are beginning the Byzantine law. But anyway, we're not beginning is the kingdom of David and the third temple. If it will be built, it will be bombed. And that's but don't tell all these people bombing Iran. P.S. Trump, P.S. Trump. Look, the moon ingressed to Capricorn. You can tell that the moon is ruled by Saturn. um, so I did not predict to be having such correct predictions without intending to. It was more my frustrations than my predictions, but my frustrations were predictive. Because what I was frustrated about was the spirit of the time. Lilith still sitting pretty conjoining Antares. And it is Jupiter day. Moon will be applying to oppose Jupiter today. I remind all the astrological magician beginners that Mars is conjoining Rahu. I made that mistake, don't follow me. I did that so you wouldn't have to. Um, for those who wonder what's the issue with Mars Rahu, Mars is conflict, Rahu is materializing, and in big and is ruled by Saturn, which is it has duration, is what I'm saying. So it's a big long war, and nobody wants to be in a big long war. Anything world news? Let's see. Not India. Well, apparently the war in Iran was more expensive than they predicted. Abolish extortion calls and people will be able to pay. Because that's our job opportunities looted. We pay with skulls of rapists. Skull tax. What happens if the rapists are the one demanding the taxes? That is a tax relief. Yeah, the most skull I can bring is maybe from the crystal shop. When if the banks will bank. What is the Strait of Hormuz? Why does it matter? Okay. Okay, World Cup. Iran will not join the World Cup. Ships hit in Strait of Hormuz as countries agree to release emergency oil reserves. Yeah, this is ecological. Why have radiation when we can have radiation in main junctures of water between continent pollution? Yes, you can't have one without the other. um,